authorize the mayor and clerk. Oh, sorry, I didn't flip the page. Moved by Councillor Fody, seconded by Councillor Jameson, that council approve the purchase from the Boat Warehouse Inc. of a low model FS 1700 US boat with a motor and trailer in the amount of $49,325 $49,325.20 inclusive net HST, and that council authorized staff to allocate $9,335.20 from the building department reserve fund to fund the amount of the purchase in excess of the $40,000 approved budget. Discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call. Oh, sorry, Councillor Grau, go ahead, and then Councillor Jameson.
Thank you, and through your worship, and I apologize for not looking at that model of boat earlier. I am a little concerned. It's a fish and ski boat, and it seems to be, I would question the use of that boat for what it's doing. I mean, people are just assuming, hey, we're carting people around, blah, blah. It's a fishing boat, i.e. it comes with storage, it comes with that and the other. And it's 115 horsepower. Wouldn't we be better off getting a small pontoon boat? You can do yourself less harm. You know, this is going to be driven around by people, by folks who don't boat a lot, maybe. And I really do question, now that I see what I bring up from the low site, what exactly we're purchasing here. I question if it's the correct style of boat. Thank you.
Go ahead, CEO.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. This matter I raised with Council in March 13th at their meeting, and I asked for approval to go ahead and proceed with the quotes. We didn't have a formal report at that time due to the lateness of the quotes coming in. We've proceeded, and based on Council's go ahead at that time, we proceeded and bought the boat. The boat was determined to meet the needs of the building and planning department. The style of the boat will carry a building inspector or two comfortably. It has enough horsepower to get them through anything that they may encounter in the river. You know, I have a pontoon boat and I'm safe with it, and I putt around the islands where I'm comfortable doing that. But you know, I've got a little 40 horse on my pontoon boat, and I wouldn't take it out in anything rough because I don't think it's got enough oomph to get me through some trouble. So 115 horse. This also, I think, is a kind of a standard package that's out by Low that they offer. A lot of these boat companies will put out a standard. You can have this type of boat, this style of boat with this type of motor, and they produce it. And it's like a car sitting on a dealer's lot. They'll have, you know, 20 with the same kit, same accessories and all that. So yes, we've already ordered the boat.
It's purchased, in other words. Is that correct?
Correct.
Good. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I'll call the question on this. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's carried. Next item is Councillor Gorell's notice of motion coming forward. It's moved by Councillor Jameson and Councillor Fody because Councillor Gorell isn't on site today, but that in April 2022, Council of the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands provided comments to the MNRF expressing concerns regarding the use of floating accommodation on waterways over Ontario's public lands, and that council has reviewed the updated posting of proposed amendments to OREG 161/17 regarding floating accommodations that have been posted for comment, and that further amendments that have been made to regulations 161/17 that address the comments provided by council in April 2022, and that council directs staff to send a letter to MNRF indicating support for the amendments to regulation 161/17 that are currently posted for comment. Councillor Gorell, do you want to speak to this?
Sure, just briefly, I want to say that my thoughts on this are to prevent the commercialization of floating barges out in the river where we have no control of it other than what the MNRF is going to do. It's not so much about private, but the commercialization, as I say, through rentals and that kind of thing. Other parts of Great Ontario and Quebec has had this problem, and I would like to prevent it from occurring here. The original proposal, which we would have seen under that regulation, they canceled most of the changes and they actually narrowed it down to one. And it came up with pretty much anything that has overnight accommodation on it has to follow the current rules, which there you go. But it would prevent somebody from building a bunch of these things, stringing them together, or scattering them throughout the waterways that the township is involved with. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Worship. Just for the record, I will support this motion, but on the premise that, you know, hopefully in the future, we won't have any involvement in this, because I think what we're looking at is overreach again. I think the higher level of government is where this belongs. We have enough on our plates. We don't have to start dipping into federal and provincial jurisdiction as far as any more zonings or any more use of spaces or that type of thing. But as this reads, I will certainly support it, but I won't invite any more regulations.
On the public record, thank you. I would like to state, we are not in any way building new jurisdiction. We are supporting what the provincial government is suggesting. Okay. So I don't want the public thinking for 1 second that we're regulating. We're not. We're supporting something that the Ontario government has run up against in the Kawarthas and elsewhere. And it's just a support. It's not a regulation. We do not control anything in those waters. Thank you.
Fair enough. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Next item. Is Councillor Lackey's notice of motion regarding the Frontenac Arts Biosphere Network for 2023 funding. Moved by Councillor Fody, seconded by Councillor Jameson, that the council direct staff to defer the Frontenac Arts Biosphere Network's FABN request for $11,000 of funding for 2023 to the 2024 budget deliberations. Further comments to this? I think it's fairly self-explanatory, unless you want to add.
No, just for clarification, I have been in touch with our director of finance, and she in turn has been in touch with the biosphere, and they can still apply for through the grants. So yeah, it's all good to move this to 2024. Should we wish to do something different at that time?
Okay. Any further comments in regards to this? I have none, see none. So I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried. So next item on the agenda is the mayor's update. And sorry, I just wanted to pull up my schedule here. Just thank you to all of the members of council. And where did we show up? I'm really tired tonight, and I apologize. My memory is failing me right at the moment. As of this week, we have just announced, along with Minister Clark, that there will be an over 40% increase in homelessness prevention funding in the province, or not in the province, in the United Counties of Lees and Grenville, which includes the separated municipalities. So we're up to $3 million in funding. I know that there is a tight turnaround time frame when it comes to applying these funds and deploying them into our communities. So if you know of anybody who is currently facing homelessness, if they're couch surfing, if they're living in an unfinished basement, if they're living in a boat, if they're living in a trailer somewhere, and they really aren't appropriately housed, it's really important that we let the counties know. Right now, a lot of the homelessness money gets allocated in the larger centers. because that's where the supports are, generally speaking, if there's mental health or addictions or health needs, because the hospital is in Brockville, they do often have a higher concentration. However, I would like us to turn our minds to some of the needs locally in our township, if you know of any, also in the town of Gananoque, where these funds could be deployed and put to good use, whether it be temporary shelter until the counties can help them find permanent shelter, or if they need further support. So watch for more information in regards to how that money will be deployed. And I know that myself and a number of other members of the Joint Services Committee will be looking to not decentralize, but to deploy some of the funds a little more evenly to the four corners, or all the many corners of this county, these United Counties. So also I will let council know that I've been asked to attend a meeting in Toronto on Thursday in regards to Great Lakes water levels. And so I will be with Minister Piccini most of Thursday from 10 until 3, and I will bring back a report from that meeting. Also, there was a motion put forward regarding parking in front of the Musical residence in front of in Sealy's Bay, to put a no parking area. And this was requested by our fire services, which we appreciate from a safety measure. However, I've asked them to have it deferred so that it can come back to council here for further discussion, because I think that there's other needs that we need to look at, not just in front of the Musical residents. So you can look forward to having something to discuss in future council meetings. So myself, Councillor Lackey, and Councillor Fody are also, and our Director of Operations and Infrastructure, David Holliday, will be attending 2023 OGRA conference this Sunday from the 16th to the 18th. And I know that we all find lots of interesting information that comes along with attending these conferences. And we look forward to bringing back some of that information to the township. April 20th is Volunteer Recognition Day. Thank you to all the volunteers who serve our community. We definitely appreciate all the hard work that you all do to make our community a better place. And that was demonstrated today at our peer meeting. The faithful, the committed, the people that work hard to bring other community members together to ensure that events happen, that beautification happens, and that we have a warm and inviting space for people to come and visit and to potentially stay. April 22nd is National Earth Day. Make sure to take part in activities such as picking up litter and planting trees to help our community be a happier and healthier place to live. I actually saw a number of posts on the weekend on social media where parents had children out picking up garbage in some of our roadways, which I still struggle to this day to understand why there is a wrapper, a coffee cup, whatever, unless it flew out of the back of a truck because somebody forgot it there. The sheer volume of garbage that's in our ditches and sidewalks and wherever else is just astounding to me. However, I would like to put this out to the public. Please, please, please be very careful when you're picking up stuff in the roadside. One of the pictures that was shared was some drug paraphernalia, and I would hate to see anybody injured because of that. So please ensure when you're doing your community service, which we so much appreciate, that you're being very mindful. And if there is anything like that, if you can leave it alone and have somebody else pick that up. So as far as PPE, I don't believe we have that available. We have garbage bags and gloves, but I don't believe that the gloves would be sufficient for needles or anything of that sense. So the other exciting part about springtime is that our recreation programs are actually starting up some of our outdoor stuff. So make sure that you register online. All of the available programs will be there. So take a look at that. And I think that's everything for me. So I'll go to announcements. Go ahead, Councillor Fody, and then Councillor Meady.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. It's not really an announcement, but nonetheless, the reckless arrogance that took place last Thursday involving CN directing Beaver Dam to be pulled again for the second time in a matter of months. This is inexcusable. I know it falls on the county road, but it also involves our residents. I know I'm not the only member of council that have been speaking to those residents, but something needs to be done on their behalf. I asked one of the residents who incurred the most damage what their insurance company told them in December when this happened. And they said, because it was done intentionally, they had no intention themselves of covering it. That's less than disappointing. But at the same point, I think it at least needs to start here with us and those being our taxpayers. It needs to start here with a process to rectify this through our director of operations, through the county director of operations, who I might say was present with staff to do the best they could under the circumstances. How it gets to CN and how this all plays out, yet to be seen. But I don't want to see this sit on a shelf for 6 months waiting for an answer. I would like to see some action put on this property, and it isn't just one property, and it's going to be expensive. This property has absolutely been ruined, and these people, well, I'll use the word bad, but it's the only 3-letter word I can likely use. Thank you.
I know that because of the infrastructure being county, that we can't specifically do anything from our perspective, other than I would suggest that a notice of motion does need to come forward to compel the county to clean up. And I'm sure there's a better wording for it that we could go through with our director of operations for suggestions, but no different than us having a notice of motion here to compel the county to change a speed limit to a parking zone to whatever, that a notice of motion should come forward at the committee of the whole in May. And then we have it on the record. And we have all the addresses of the affected individuals and that they need to be compensated and or whatever. Go ahead.
In all due respect, that's exactly what's going to happen. A notice of motion is going to go on to next month and then county the next month and so on. Nothing is going to happen to these property owners. I would like to see the property cleaned up, and then whoever deserves the bill, then they can play the waiting game.
So
I have no problem okaying whomever the director of operations would like to go ahead and clean this property up. There's tons of gravel, sand, mud. There's a current lightweight ditch that drains that property that's now completely plugged, to say nothing of the cost they incurred. And just to put a little needle in their balloon, it was the weekend prior that they had mustered up a little help to pressure wash the downgrade garage, all cemented driveway that the Christmas time flood incurred. And there's pictures, the mud settled in there about 6 inches deep after the water dissipated out the back doors. But it was the weekend before, a week ago, Saturday, Sunday, they pressure washed this whole inside of this garage, only to have the same thing reoccur on Thursday morning. And as I said, it's inexcusable. These people are of a similar vintage and age to myself. They don't have the physical capacity and they're exasperated. And I think as residents of this township, this is one of those rare moments where we need to step up as council and see to it that something properly is done for these people.
So in order
That's
to,
just my feeling.
I appreciate the request, although because it is outside of budget, we would have to have a notice of motion for something to move forward. That's in order for us to direct staff to do that, because it's pertaining to something that happened from a county. I'm just looking for some direction from staff. Am I wrong about that or right? Go ahead, Councillor Jameson.
Just where's CN and all this? Are we, should we be initiating legal action against CN?
we don't have any skin in the game in this particular roadway, but anyways, we don't own the roadway, but the county does.
Can I just say, we, an awful lot of money was spent by this township at Christmas with our fire service, with our police calls, with our ground crews and everything else. So there is material cost to this township, and we're talking about some of our residents. So I think at the end of the day, we can sort of kick the ball up and down the road. But the reality is that until we're prepared to go after CN, we're not going to see anything.
Go ahead, Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Worship, through you. In a perfect world, CN would have a claims person coming out to examine people's claims. It was through their negligence that they've caused damage. So that, same thing if they, run a train over your suitcase while you're, they should have a process for submitting claims and that sort of thing. I'm not sure what's happened with the December Beaver Dam incident. Whether residents were able to put claims in or not. That's something we can do. We can check and see what they've got as far as if CN's caused damage, what's the process? And maybe we can pass that information along to people that are affected by it and see if there's a way for them to get some compensation out of all of this.
I do believe that there was arrangements made with the county to come and take the material off the front lawn, and that they were waiting for the ground to dry up so that they didn't make a mess of what is left there to take. Now, obviously there's more material there. Having said that, my understanding was in preliminary conversations was that that road needs to be redone because it's been undermined. It's been patched together for, passability, safety. But my understanding is that we needed to incur the cost of whatever it was going to cost to repair the road as a total, and then they would be going after CN. I can get some further clarification on that. I can speak to the CAO at the county as to what their plans are as far as any legal actions and what specifically they can do for the resident in question that's had the majority of the damage. I think the rest of the individuals along that pathway, the main damage is their driveways and their culverts at the end of the driveway. I don't think anybody's had any other resident has had property damage such as this particular resident we're talking about. So I can absolutely work with the CAO to ensure that we send something to the county to find out what they're doing. And if they're not doing anything, then it comes back to council for decision at that point in time. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I stopped also on the day of this happening and met with the county guys, and they showed me the drone footage of the water that which CN did release and how far back it went, and which was fairly substantial. My first question is, what's changed? Because this hasn't happened for years and years and years up until this present year. So beavers. Oh yeah. I was getting to that point, is that they haven't mitigated the issue of having beavers because we've changed our policy and how we deal with and the fur trade and all that. But on the other hand is the CN has taken the dam out twice. If it's such a concern, they should be there every month taking it, removing it. But they should also be notifying county and the municipality that they're doing this with enough warning to get our equipment there to make sure that what's coming through that waterway is removed so the water can actually travel the direction it should be doing it. And after you do this for a couple of years, the beavers will move on because you've disturbed their home and they'll find another place that is better for them. So
Or we could trap them.
you could do
remove
that,
them.
but there's a lot of people who are not as keen on that. And I would have no problem with that either. But again, if you upset their house, they're not going to stay there long. So by removing the dam on a continuous basis, you're going to eliminate their need to be there. And with monitoring of it, it can be done quite easily. It's going to take manpower, and it's probably CN because it's their property. But if it's done on a regular basis, we're going to mitigate the issue.
Is there any further comments or questions? So I've made a commitment to go back to the county CAO and the director of operations of the county to find out exactly what they're intending on doing, as well as timelines to find out. And then I'll bring that back as an information report to the next meeting. And then we'll have to make a decision if, depending on what their response is at that time. Any other announcements? Did you have another one, Councillor Fody? Oh, you just said the one. Councillor, maybe you had announcements. Okay. Any other announcements? Councillor Garrell? Nope. Okay. So I will go to the confirmatory bylaw, which is moved by Councillor Jameson, seconded by Councillor Fody. The 3 readings and final passage be granted to bylaws 23-027, 23-028, 23-029, and 3 readings and final passage be granted to bylaw number 23-030, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the corporation of the Township of Leeds in the Thousand Islands at its April 3rd committee of the whole meeting and the April 11th council meeting. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. And the last motion on the docket is to adjourn, moved by Councillor Fody, seconded by Councillor Jameson, that council adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried, and we are adjourned. Thank you.